cashless endgame. Cash is banned. Central bankers drop interest rates into negative territory. This puts the squeeze on all those small retail banks, putting most of them out of business. As a result, the real economy shrinks because small and mid-sized businesses, the backbone of economic growth, don't have access to funding. The average people look to the Fed and the government and say, oh, please protect us. We can't get ahead in the real economy anymore. They say, no problem, there's a Fed put. So all of the average Joes take their resources and put them into the financial economy because now this is the only way that they can get ahead. So they bet on asset prices, speculation, and timing bubbles. So as the real economy is decreasing in size, the financial economy is increasing in size exponentially, making all of these bubbles bigger and bigger and bigger. The central banks know this. At some point in time, it all comes crashing down. When it does, the big banks go to the central banks and say, hey, we need a bailout. We've got systemic risk. That's when the central banks look at the big banks and say, no, I don't think so. They let them fail. The central banks have then wiped out the small banks and the big banks, so they are now the only game in town. They have 100% control of the money and the credit. If they control the money and the credit, they control you. And to hear Richard Werner explain this in his own words, let's go back to that article. Here, Werner talks about the Bank of England, but you can insert the name of any central bank. By supporting monetary reformers, meaning people who want to ban cash, the Bank of England may further increase its own power and accelerate the drive to concentrate the banking system if credit creation was abolished and there was only one true bank left, the Bank of England. It would further the project to increase control and monitoring of the population, with both cash and bank credit alternatives abolished. All transactions, money creation, and allocation of that money would be implemented by the Bank of England. Werner goes on to imagine how the PR departments of the central banks and the mainstream media would spin this, how one could increase their security and safety with this digital money. What if one loses one's direct debit card? No doubt some bright Bank of England spark, or else any of the talking heads in the media, will then suggest we should adopt the techniques long practiced with our pets, namely implanting microchips under the skin as our money of the future. Whether this spells progress, readers need to decide for themselves.
How have the central bankers, this is my last slide because my 12 minutes is just up, have reacted to the truth coming out? They admit that they've been telling porkies, and now they propose to increase their power. So central bankers belatedly admit, oh, now that you've mentioned it, yes, banks create the money supply. So let's abolish that now. And also, by the way, let's abolish cash. So what should we do? Well, introduce digital cybercurrency that central banks issue and control, and thereby gain total control over all economic transactions, decisions, and the whole lot you've just heard from the CEO of the GDI. So the greatest concentration of central banking power in history is really the bid they're aiming at. That's the central bank's goal. And of course, digital accounts of dissenters and regime critics could be switched off. It'd be very difficult to even purchase necessities. So this is an Orwellian dystopia of total control, the end of any freedoms. That's really what central banks are aiming at. Several central banks have, like the Bank of England, already prepared their microchip implant, RFID chip, to be implanted under your skin. And why is the sudden discussion about universal basic income from all the grassroots and inverted commas movements and billionaires. Oh, universal basic income is the bribe for you to accept the microchip. The overarching trend of the 20th century is concentration of power in the hands of the few. That's what we have to keep in mind. We have to work against this. We don't want to have these unaccountable central planners making decisions. We need decentralization, and the solution, therefore, is to maintain public money in the hands of local community banks, decentralize decision-making, give local people the power in the form of local public banks and local not-for-profit community banks. As I walked in, I was delighted to see that the Gottlieb Duttweiler Institute is also about Genossenschaften, cooperatives, and of course, the majority of banks in Germany are cooperative banks, and that's really what we need. So